Warning: the advice given in this video is not intended to replace the advice or practices provided by a licensed electrician. Grounding in electrical practices varies sometimes greatly by region and should be investigated before deploying a tower grounding system. Please follow your local electrical code and talk to a master electrician when doing your grounding for your towers, as it is critical for protecting yourself and your equipment. Thank you. Alright, good evening lads and lasses. Today I want to talk about grounding. Very critical actually. So what I'm going to show you today is just grounding practices that we use in my locale. And they are not to be taken as code. They are not to be taken literally. So the only one that I'm going to show you that I would definitely take literally would be my cable grounding practice. But everything else is going to be based on your electrical code and whatnot. Alright, so we got a few things to take a look at here. We've got surge suppressors, which I'm going to show you some APC ones, which are beautiful. There's all sorts of different brands that make these. So here's an APC 4-port. Alright, put that over. Okay, here's a 24-port APC rack mount. Alright, but first, folks. One of the key rules about grounding your towers and your radio sites is to ensure that there is no voltage differential across any piece of equipment that you've got there. That means your tower, your rack, your cables, everything. That will ensure, if everything is properly grounded to a proper ground rod or proper ground halo that's in the earth, that no matter what hits your tower, it's going to drastically reduce the amount of problems you're going to have, like shit getting blown up. Alright, so one of the things I want to show you first, this is a grounding technique that I've come up with based on what a lot of companies do. I guess CommScope does it, Andrews Wireless, Bell, Rogers, AT&T, all of them have been doing this in similar ways for God knows how long. But you can't always find kits, which is a pain in the ass. So I've come up with a kit solution for you. First of all, this is a piece, number 12 copper wire. Okay? This is stranded number 10. The idea here is that you ground your cable at both the tippy top of the tower, at the top of the tower, and you ground it at the bottom of the tower by your Radio Shack. This will ensure that if there is a near-site strike, that the electromagnetic pulse or RF release from the lightning will be discharged to earth and not carried through to your equipment or your lightning suppressors, which are supposed to be your last resort. Okay, so this cable here, I already got it prepped up. So one of the things you're going to want to get is this, let's see here. This is Thomas & Betts heat shrink. This stuff is phenomenal. This is what we use. This has a glue lining inside of it, okay? So when you actually heat this up, the glue will flow, and it will actually melt around whatever it is that you are adhering to, and it will seal it from water. So this one here, let's see here. It's about 11.81 millimeters. Let's see if I can switch it over to inches for you guys. So that's, let's see here. It says on the little label, 0.35 by 0.12 inches. I'm showing about 0.46 outside diameter. Anyway, yeah, let's show you that again. Okay, by the way, I'm using a new light, so hopefully this makes a difference. Alright, so here's the trick. Here's your cable. This is the cable that I recommend you guys use, okay? There is better cable than even this, but this is just the most basic cable I would use. I believe it is made by Shireen, but let me just double check and see if there's still a label on here. I'm pretty sure it's Shireen. So what you have here, you've got your jacket, you've got your braid, you've got another plastic film, and then you've got your foil over top of your cables, your leads, okay? So this is going to be your top of the tower. It's the shortest gap. You want to make that very small. You can even make it smaller. You can make it like about an inch if you really want to. I just made it 2 inches just to give you guys an example. It shows up better on camera. This is the one that I put in the Radio Shack. The reason why I do it like this is if this is coming in from outside like so, any water that gets in the cable will bleed out right here. And yeah, you just ground this and leave it a little bit exposed and it'll keep the water out. So the first thing you want to do is get your heat shrink. Just slide it over here like so. Of course, this is after you've stripped your cabling. By the way, for stripping jacketing, I recommend a hook blade. It just goes around so nicely, and then you just Take it right off. Just beautiful, okay? Now remember, you want to seal this shit good, because if you don't, you're going to get water in your cable, for sure, and it's just going to corrode, and you're not going to get a long life out of it. Okay, so I'm going to take a bit of this off. Now, I'm going to take off here. I usually eyeball it. You want to make it about twice as long as your gap there, right? Okay, so let's just, I'll show you a little demo here. There we go. Got it. Pull it off. There you go. This is the direction to the top of the tower, okay? Like this. Slide your heat shrink up. Take your number 12. Now remember, folks, this is budget. There is equipment out there that will do this now. Now, if you notice, I've got the two jackets lined up here, okay? So now we're going to want to wind this tight, like so. I'm going to wind it around a few times. And then, you see how there's just a little bit left over? What I personally like to do, just let me a little bit more, there we go, is I like to do this. With the pliers, so that it's sticking up the side of it like this. And then you slide this back down. Now make a note of where that is, because you want more of this at the top than you do down below. Like right there is enough. Okay, so now we've got about that much at the top. Got about that much at the bottom, which is more than enough to seal it. We have heat guns. You want to bring a heat gun on site. This is my bench heat gun. I'm just using it as an example, okay? Get your heat gun here. Geez, I hope this one's actually big enough to do the job for this. Sometimes blowtorches work really good too, but only if you're skilled enough to use them. See how nice that is? Now you're going to want to do this evenly, okay? This is critical. You want to get it all the way around. And then once it's actually shriveled up, you want to give it a bit more heat, because that's actually going to cause the glue to melt. And the glue is the reason why I specifically chose this heat shrink. Because once that glue gets gooey, it's going to reseal this cable, okay? Look at that. See, I'm spending a lot more time up here, because this is the tippy top of the tower side, okay? Cable faces down. Now, you can't see this right now, but this piece of heat shrink is actually pulling down on itself, which is great. That means it's going to slide, and it's going to cause that hot glue to get all over the place. Okay. So now, if you look closely there, you're going to see a little bit of hot glue. Let me see if I can get that in. See the hot glue squeezing out right there? So that's now sealed that. Okay, so now, the next step I'm going to show you guys is while it's still warm, and this is burning hot like the blazes of hell, so watch your fingers, and you can see in here now how it's sealed up. The glue's coming out. We use both marker cable and labels on our cables. So up the tower, we use colored marker cable, and down in the shack, we also use labels. So what I like to do is I like to go one, just a little bit lower, while this is still hot. And this is the good electrical tape, by the way, folks. This is the stuff that's kind of, it's vinyl, so it's stretchy. It's there's a couple of different types of vinyl cable, and one of them, or tape, one of them really sucks. So while this is hot, notice that I'm overlapping and I'm not creasing. You don't want to crease this, because then you're going to lose your seal, okay? There we go. So now we're over the end. A little bit more. See that? I've actually overlapped the heat shrink. Now the heat shrink should be enough on its own with hot glue, but with the additional vinyl tape, there we go, you get a really nice seal on this. So the heat shrink is your number one with the glue inside of it. The tape here, there you go, the tape is going to be your last defense. Now, there you go. So now look at that. Now see how there's like no creases in that? That's just nice overlap, and it's hot. So this tape is actually like melting to it. It's like stretching into it. So now that's perfectly sealed from water ingress. Obviously, if you tipped it upside down like that and you stuck a power washer to it, you're going to get some water in there. But this is the top of the tower cable. I usually make my top lead about 2 feet long. That way it gives you enough length to plug into your radio. And I usually make this about 1 foot long, by the way, folks. 1 foot from the splice to the tip. It gives you a chance to put your service loop at your radio, and then you've got a nice long piece of grounding cable here to go onto the tower itself. There's a million ways to anchor it. Sometimes we put it under mounts so that it's pinched against the side of the tower, but it's really important to make sure that it's got a nice tight fit to the tower. Now let's move down to the bottom of the tower. Okay, so this is up. This is the up side, okay? So now the bottom of the tower is a little different. You don't need to seal it because we're talking about inside the Radio Shack. So I usually take this, I'll just eyeball it at around 3 inches or so, right? You can do more if you want. And once again, I use my hook blade. There we go. There we go. So now, split this in half. Like approximately half. This isn't critical, because as long as there's a nice, good number 10 ground here, we're good. Now remember, this is top. So this is, okay, so this is going to come down, and then this is going to go up to your equipment, okay? So we're talking like this. So this is coming down the wall, okay? So what I do is right about here at the bottom, I take this and I split them apart like this, and you wrap, okay? You don't have to make them as tight. I just wrap it around just like that. See, there's one. Come around the other side. That's number 2. That is your ground at the base of the tower. Now, as I usually use yellow and green marker tape for this purpose. So you just put a little bit of tape on the bottom here. Again, the tape here isn't critical. It's just a tidy factor to make sure you don't get mouse piss on it or corrosion that will destroy the connection you're grounding. You're bonding to your jacket here, your braid. Okay, so now here, this allows for water to drain out. Because no matter how hard you try, unless you're using like $1 million cable, there's probably going to get water in it at some point. This guy here goes to your grounding bus, which I'll show you guys later in the video. So now, you've got your tower cable grounded at the top and the bottom. So if you get a near strike or a direct strike with this, chances are that braid is going to save your equipment. This is, and it's not a light braid. This is a nice heavy braid. So this is the video I was promising you guys. That is a nice watertight number 12 to go at the top of the tower, and your number 10 at the bottom of the tower. And again, it's critical to do this properly. You have to make sure that you've got 0 potential across any connections. All your grounds need to be good. Okay, so that's the first part. It's a nice solid steel peg. Look at that. There we go. Look at that big, beautiful anchor. There we go, that big lug. Look at that. Nice, big, round cable that goes down into the earth here. I don't dare dig it up because it goes way down there. Now that joins a round loop that encircles the tower and the building. So if you look here, same thing on the other leg of the tower. Pretty cool, eh? Now if you look over here too, there's 2 more wires. One goes inside there. The other one keeps going up to a ground plate there, which is where you can bond your coax. But we took this tower over. It's an old AT&T tower, and we aren't really using any coax here. We're using all Cat 5 Ethernet. So, yeah. But that's where they would bond all the cables, the jacketing on the cables. So, I showed you that ground wire outside. This is where it comes to. Nice big ground bus. Big meaty, and then up here, as you can see, there is a halo which encircles the roof of our Radio Shack here. Comes up and goes all the way around and back over there. Now, not there. You can see there's taps on there for our surge suppression system here. There's a ground that comes down to the panel box here. Everything in here connects to that ground. as you can see. Everything in this building shares the same ground as the tower leg. Now in here you can see the cables here. Right there, we've got, let's see here, each of these cables, the jacket, is grounded to its own piece of number 12, which I'll go over here to this grounding block, which connects to a piece of number 10. It goes straight up here to this block, focus. There we go. Next to that grounding block there. Same thing with the rack. The rack here shares the same ground. There's a ground wire here for our surge suppression system here, which we're using an APC surge suppression system, as you can see. But yeah, everything here shares the same ground. It's all about having like zero differential voltage between any two grounding points at your tower site. Alright, so now let's take a look at a couple of grounding contraptions here. This is the second line of defense. I've heard rumor that these are not good to use with Netonic switches, only because some people have reported that when these guys fault, because they typically fault to dead short, the dead short causes an issue with the switch. The switch will actually just pop. Okay, see if I can get this bloody thing out of here. I think I'm going to need a convincer, you know. Alright, so here we go. Now, there is also another product out there, which I'm sure you guys are going to find, that is an alternative to these little blades. This is the PNE TR6. This is a Cat 6 lightning arrestor blade. Here's a close-up of it. See the nice grounding strip on the top there, your bond. There's your ports. Now, the way that this chassis works, chassis, here's all your ports, okay? Now, the way that these guys work is they're very simple. There's a little pinch point on here. There's like a little pinchy set of metal rails here. And when you slide this bugger in, like so, let's see if you can see that. When you slide it in, it goes between them. And then that little copper bar at the top gets pinched. So this guy here, the way that it actually works, these little surge suppressor guys, it's got some diodes on it. And in a lot of cases, they've got MOVs, which are metal oxide varistors, which only conduct at a certain voltage. These little diodes here, I believe, it's the forward voltage that does the trick. So that's what determines if it's going to go straight to ground. And up here, right up there, I need a pointy. Right there it says GDT, gas discharge tube. There isn't one, but there is a spark gap there, as you can see. GDT. There's a spark gap. That spark gap also allows lightning to short to earth. So this is a 24 port. This is, I think it's the P, where is it? The number's going to be on the back of it. Let's see here. PRM24 by APC. I'm not going to tell you a price. They're not expensive. They're actually pretty cheap. The chassis, the lightning arrestors themselves are a bit more expensive. And again, there is a third-party one you can get for this that runs amazing. Actually, probably better than the originals. But yeah, you can get these at your electrical wholesaler. Anybody who sells Schneider. And then here's a smaller one, which you can also get mounts for. But I didn't have any handy, so I just wanted to demo it, and I got a couple of L brackets, stuck them on there. So this is a little 4-port. So this is good for a small tower site. Okay, you got your ground on the back. This is the way that these guys work. Just a ground screw. So you get a tail that comes with it, and you just ground the chassis to your ground block in your radio shack. Okay. So there's those. Now talking about tower grounding. Okay. So let me just see here. I should probably get something to draw on. Let's see here. Yeah, 1 second. Hold on. Let's get a paper. Okay, here we go. So now, showing you guys how to ground a tower. Again, this is the part where I really want to be strong on my disclaimer. What I'm showing you is the practices that we can actually use in our municipality. These are just the basics. Your grounding practices and policies and procedures are going to change based on the district that you're in, your municipality, whatever. So this is just a rough idea of how a tower is supposed to be grounded. So Now, different heights also matter, because if your thing is a friggin' lightning rod, like if it's like 200 feet tall, it's going to be a problem. So let's go with the basic 64 foot. Okay? 64 foot freestanding tower, okay? So you got your tower here. Now remember, you got your cables coming down your tower. Okay? Your cables are going to be grounded at their mount point. So we'll put standoff here with a sector. I suck at drawing. So, where's my pink marker? There we go. So here is your cable going to your sector. So now we've got a ground. We want to bond it to the tower up at the top here by that sector. And then we want to bond this either to the tower or in the radio shack. So I'll just draw a radio shack right here. There we go. So here's your radio shack. So your cable's coming into your radio shack. Whatever. Comes up the wall here. And then you've got your ground block in here. You're going to have your cable go up to your ground block here. Now the key critical point here is, depending on the soil around your site, is your ground rod. Okay? You want your ground rod. We usually use 8 to 10 feet. So we go down about 8 to 10 feet into the grade here, okay? And we make sure that it's pounded in. So now we usually bond the tower leg with a piece of number 1, okay? So this will be number 1 or larger cable going from the leg of the tower down here, which I'll show you later on the video, okay? Over here in the shack, we usually run number 10. So we bring our number 10 here, and we anchor it to, or we ground it to the same ground point. Okay. So we've got our number 10 going into the shack. If it's a heavy shack, like not just a couple of routers and a couple of little things, there will be number 1 going there too, but typically we use number 10 down here. Alright, so now we've got our tower leg grounded. We've got our ground bus bar inside of the radio shack coming down to here. So now if I took a meter from here to here, the resistance is going to be like nil. It's going to be almost nothing. Okay, like very, very slight, and that's what you want. You also want your path from the top of the tower to your ground rod to be the shortest path for the lightning to flow. Now, another little thing as well that I'm going to point out is that your gap here from the leg of the tower, or the foundation of the tower, to your lightning rod should be no less than 3 feet. That gap there between the lightning rod, or ground rod, and the tower should be no less than 3 feet. The reason for that is you don't want it hitting the foundation. You don't want lightning splitting your foundation, because you can actually have lightning come down here and then ground across here and then arc, and that'll actually blow the foundation out. So you want to have the ground rod itself to draw the energy away from your concrete base, because most of these towers here, as you know, have a large concrete base in the ground that the standoffs go into. Okay, so there's some key pointers right here about grounding your tower and grounding your cabling. It's all critical shit. You got your lightning arrestors, blah, blah, blah. We've tried an experiment where some towers have lightning arrestors, some towers don't. We found that since we started doing this grounding trick with our cabling, that we aren't just not having problems with lightning anymore. Okay, so that's the grounding walkthrough.